Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. Just before we get started, any likes and subscribes, support on the channel is greatly appreciated. And let's get into it. So we're going to do a bit of a wildcard video for game week 6. And before we get started, it's at this stage of the season where people start seriously thinking about making changes to their team. So what do you want to do? Do you want to gain rank? In which case you have to probably take some risks if you've fallen behind a bit, or do you want to sort of, change your team to go with the popular players and, the trends at the moment and sort of stay with the group, as it were, for the foreseeable future? So we've got a few teams to target here. So we're going to start with, that's right, Nottingham Forest. Now bear with me, okay, because if you look at the fixtures from a defensive point of view, that's a pretty good 7 fixtures. Okay, and I think if you were ever going to get Nottingham Forest players, it'd be for these fixtures. I think they've got good value in players like Dean Henderson and Williams, who are playing a lot. And Dean Henderson is already the top scoring keeper in fantasy league. It's only 4.6 million, and he's got those fixtures coming up as well. I think don't touch them from an attacking point of view, but from a defensive point of view, I think they're all right, especially for the value they offer. Next up, we're going to have Leicester. Now they've had a bad start to the season, don't get me wrong, but the transfer window will be shut. They've got rid of Fafana. They'll be a bit more settled. Once the transfer window closes, those players that were sort of angling for a move and didn't get it, they've kind of got to refocus again, because if they don't perform well, then they're not going to get the move in the next transfer window. So Leicester are that sort of team that, whilst they've not started well, could get their act together in the near future. And I think with the fixtures that they've got, they could easily, you would say on a good day, Leicester could get 4 or 5 wins out of those fixtures moving forward. And I think, those players such as maybe even a Vardy or a Madison, if you're looking at a differential option, someone that you get in to gain ranks before everyone else gets on them, I think Leicester are a reasonable team to pick. Brentford, we had them in last week's video as well. Especially from an attacking point of view, I think someone like Ivan Toney, I don't see a defence there. Maybe apart from from Chelsea, if they get the lineup a bit more settled, where Tony doesn't score. And I think he's a great value at 7.2 million. He's a potential person to target in Brentford. Next up, we've got Newcastle. Fantastic fixtures, and they've also shown they can mix it up against Liverpool, Man City. I think defensively and attacking point of view, I think they offer great value, and I think they are a good team to target moving forward on your wildcard. And the last team we've got is Southampton again. A team that's not necessarily started, super well, but they're playing a lot of teams that aren't scoring goals, especially in the next 4 games: Wolves, Brentford, Villa, and Everton. You would say, apart from Brentford, you wouldn't really expect any of those teams to necessarily hit the back of the net more than once. So I think Southampton are a team that are really getting slept on a little bit, and maybe it's worth just having a look, even if it's a couple of cheaper options to fill out your bench. That you could rotate in when the fixtures are not looking good for your other players. So teams to avoid, and we're going to start with Liverpool. Now, when I say avoid them, I think there's like a reasonable expectation that you should probably have someone like Salah in your team. All right, so I'm not saying you need to avoid Salah, but I'm saying Liverpool haven't started great. They are not playing very well, to be honest. They didn't have many shots on target against Newcastle last night. Very lucky to win it in the end. Not only did the winning goal come 8 minutes into injury time, it was also just a bobble around the assist off Salah's back, the back of his head, and it just fell to Carvalho and he thumped it in. Newcastle extremely unlucky there. But also just the fixtures. Liverpool just seem to not be very happy at the moment. And I think Chelsea away, Arsenal away, Man City at home, and even West Ham, they got it together against Spurs yesterday. I think they're 4 fixtures that are not good for Liverpool right now. So by all means, Salah can score against anyone. But apart from that, I would be struggling to justify getting another Liverpool player in your team, apart from maybe Trent. Next up, we got Everton. For me, Everton are just don't go anywhere near him. Some people might say Anthony Gordon, and I think if you've got a spare 5.5 million, there's not really anyone else to get in your team. Sure, go for it. But if you're relying on him to score points consistently, I think you'll be waiting for a while. The fixtures do not look good as well, combined with the fact that they've not performed well already against more mixed fixtures than what they're going to be facing in the next seven. You would say Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United, Spurs, Newcastle, even West Ham. That is not good. Don't go for Everton. Next up, we've got Arsenal. So, whilst they've got Everton and Brentford in there, I think the rest of these fixtures are not very good at all. And although Arsenal have started really well, they've had to come from behind in the last two, I think. And they've not really been tested with any of the big teams. I think if they do come through this, then I think someone like Jesus might be a set and forget in your team. And I do hope Arsenal do well this season. This isn't me not wanting Arsenal to do well. But I do think there may be a bit false promises so far this season in the fact that they've only just beaten, mid-table teams. They've not really blown teams away. And I think these are the sort of fixtures where all of a sudden, if they lose 2-0 to Man United, everyone will be questioning whether they get Jesus out of the team. I think defensively, you stay away. I think if you're going to go for someone, probably Martinelli, but even then, Smith Rowe is going to come back at some point and rotation's going to come in. So I think Jesus is an okay bet against these teams. I think he can still score, Arsenal still score goals, but I think defensively, stay away. Moving on to Wolves, they've not started very well. I think also they're not scoring at all. And they've got Liverpool, Man City at two out of the next three, then Chelsea not soon after. I think once they get past that Chelsea game, you might want to revisit. But up until then, based on the form we've seen so far, it's no good. Last team we've got a Villa. Now Gerrard's under a bit of pressure. I think he needs more time. The teams Villa have been losing to have been good teams, top teams in the league. But that doesn't really change with Man City and Chelsea in the next few. I think if you wanted somebody like, an attacker from Villa, I don't see why you would go for someone from Villa when you've got Mitrovic, Tony, Jesus, Haaland, Kane, as attacking options. I don't know why you would, if you're getting in a Villa attacker, you're not having in one of those guys, and I can't really justify that. So that combined with how they've been playing at the moment, I would stay away from Villa. So into the wildcard team for this week for game week 6. And we're just going to start with Dean Henderson in goal. Like we said, Nottingham Forest are a team to target. Henderson's shown he can score points regardless of the fixture. He's capable of making saves, he's capable of saving penalties and getting bonus points. And Bournemouth at home, especially in the next one, I think with some of these fixtures, you could potentially double up on Nottingham Forest defence. There, I said it. Moving into defence, and you can see we've also got Williams in there. Combined with Henderson, I just think they're so cheap. If they don't play, if you don't want to play Williams, don't play him. Play somebody else if you don't think they can get a double clean sheet. But you're telling me at Bournemouth at home, that is probably the best chance Forest are going to get. Kyle Walker's a great way into Man City's defence. Now, Cancelo's goal against Forest was only his second ever for Man City. And he was probably only that far up the pitch because they were so comfortable. You can save 2 million by getting Walker in instead. He looks like he's going to be playing consistently, and I think that will free up funds to upgrade into someone like Trippier. Newcastle's fixtures look good. Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brentford in the next five. Trippier's on set pieces, and they've already shown they can play against anyone. Like we said, they were unlucky against Liverpool, drawn against Man City. Now, I know I said to stay away from Liverpool players, apart from Salah, but the same kind of applies for Trent. Just because he's 7.5 million, it's hard to find that value in midfield. 7.5 million midfielder that's maybe, Trent's also on set pieces for corners and free kicks, and he provides that attacking threat. And Liverpool are capable of a clean sheet. They just need to sort themselves out. And that's going to hopefully happen sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it's going to be a big problem this season. I've also gone for Fofana on the bench, as we'll see in a little bit later. I think Fofana at 4.4 million, he's bound to start and go up in price. Chelsea aren't going to spend 70 million on a defender and not play him. Chelsea fixtures defensively are looking good as well. They've got Palace, Wolves, Villa, Brentford, and Fulham. in the next seven. They're 5 out of the next 7 games. So I think, someone like Fofana is a 4.4 million that you can get in, knowing that he's playing for essentially a top four team and he's going to start. I think that just is such a simple decision to make. Now, in the midfield, we've mixed it up a little bit. We've obviously got Salah, as we've talked about, but I've also gone for Raheem Sterling. He's had 3 goals in his last two, and he's a massive differential at 8.5% owned. If you're looking to gain ground, he'd be a good shout. If you're contributing, even when the team isn't playing well, like Chelsea, that's a great sign because when the team does finally get themselves together, Sterling's going to contribute even more, you would think. And, he is the focal point of that Chelsea attack right now, unless they sign someone on deadline day. Someone like Ward Prowse is again on set pieces, and he's got Wolves, Brentford, Villa, and Everton in the next four. That's the next four fixtures. They look great for attacking returns. He's always good for a free kick as well, and he's so involved in everything Southampton do. I think, like we said on the teams to target, they're going under the radar a little bit at Southampton, and I'm not saying they're going to set the world alight, but I think if you're looking to gain ranks and get a mid price differential midfielder in, I think someone like Ward Prowse is a good shout. Up front, we've obviously got Haaland. Now, Haaland has got 9 goals with only 101 touches of the ball, which is just ridiculous. No player has ever scored 3 consecutive hat tricks either. Haaland's on for that with Villa away, and we've already said Villa's a team to avoid. So I think getting Haaland in, I know people are worried about the rotation risk, but at the moment there is no rotation risk. They're managing his minutes really well. He's starting every game. I can completely see him continuing to start every game and just coming off after an hour. If he's already scored 3 goals in an hour, that's the damage done. I don't really think there's any need to worry about rotation risk until it happens. I think you just ride the wave, especially at the moment because you could tell everything is going his way. Any bobble just fell to him last night. The second goal was a Nottingham Forest tackle, and the ball went sideways. It fell just straight to Haaland's feet. He's got an open goal. Same with the third goal. It's just a bobble back in, and he's just bigger than everyone else and just heads it in. So from that point of view, it's if he was playing for any other team, you would say maybe they can't keep that chance creation up. But I think playing for Man City, they obviously can, and he will just be a goal machine. So I think if you haven't got him, you need to really get him in. And even for Alvarez, his first goal, if Alvarez had squared it, Haaland would be left with another open net. And I think it's got shades of Vardy and Mahrez, from when they won the title, where people didn't think they could keep it going, and they stayed off them, and they did keep it going. And I think the same is probably true for Haaland. We've also got Isak up front. I think he looked great against Liverpool, and he had a second goal ruled out. He was offside, but they played on until the goal had gone in. And he sat down, I think it was Robertson, and took it round Gomez as well, and just looked really composed and calm. And the finish was so confident. I think as a differential, why not? Why not get him in? And Newcastle's fixtures look all right. And like what we said with Trippier, they can play against anyone. I think right, to get him in right now would be ahead of the curve, and I think you could really benefit from those points getting in. He's at a price where he's in between Mitrovic and Tony, so to get him in, I think you maybe have to go against one of those two. But I don't see why not. For the potential upside. Finally, we've got Tony. Um, Brentford have great attacking fixtures, including Leeds, Southampton, and Bournemouth in the next four. I think that Bournemouth fixture is especially one that everyone's going to target. We're yet to see how they're going to react to the manager change, but I think until they show any signs of life, I think you've just got to target them, and Tony would be a great person to get in for that. So rounding off the bench, we've got another Brentford player in De Silva. Cheap, same with Andreas. They're both playing. I know De Silva gets rotated a bit, but I think when, at 4.6 million, what are you expecting? And Andreas as well. They're involved in a lot of Fulham's play. And I think in that bench, you've got some good rotation. You can definitely play the fixtures if you need to in terms of rotating players out. But I also think that starting 11 looks pretty strong. So some tips for this week. What you need to think about if you're wildcarding is, do you want to gain rank or not lose rank further? So what I mean by that is are you hoping just to sort of stay where you are and not fall any further behind and play it safe? Or are you sort of the person that is like, right, if this season's going to turn into something, I've got to go for it now and it's all or nothing. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I'm going to get, these differential players in and try and, counter, um, that the players that are heavily owned. And I think this team that we've got in front of us does that. I think it's more of a team where you can potentially gain rank. You also need to think how many bench players are you actually going to need. I think really you only ever need more than only one bench player that comes on. I think with the five subs rule as well, I think that's something that you need to take into account, in that a lot of your players probably will play at some point. It's really just the order of your bench, I think, is that you need to think about. But to be honest, on that bench there, you've got nobody above 4.6 million. So there's loads of great value out there. So I think if you've been able to find that value, doesn't really matter in terms of your bench um, playing or not playing, because they've got that sort of untouchable status, in the sense that they're so cheap, you've got no risk. Anyway, so that's my wildcard team for this week. Let me know what you think. Any support is greatly appreciated. Is there anyone that you would swap out? Have taken a few unnecessary risks there? And yeah, thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next one.